So let's jump right into the first question of, are you emotionally ready to retire? This is a very difficult point because you're going to be leaving this phase of working for 30, 40 years into this new era of life in which you don't have the structure set for you by, in this case, the federal government to help you stay on track with your career. It is very important that you develop a plan, that you anticipate what is to come and get excited about that and draw a roadmap of how that will come about. You need to develop a plan. You don't need to be too vague about your concept of retirement. What we find is people that have a vague thought of retirement typically are not ready for retirement. You need to bring those dreams, those thoughts into reality and begin to lay out a roadmap of success for your retirement. Be more specific than just, I'm going to retire and not go to work anymore. Have somewhere that you're going, something you're going to do, be that in volunteering your time or another job or spending time with your grandchildren, your family. Have those purposes. Even take time to write down who you will be, what you will do when you retire. It's unfortunate in our culture today that many times we define ourselves by our job. The first thing we will say to each other when we meet someone is, what do you do for a living? And that begins conversation so many times. So when you retire, you lose that identity. Make sure that before you retire, you're beginning to create that new identity. Very important when we deal with folks that are working through retirement. That's one of the key stages. You must have that thought more than, I just don't want to have to work anymore. If that's your only thought, then I dare say you're not ready for retirement. Let me give you a great story of a federal employee who had worked for a career, moved way up, was a 15 in a federal agency, had had a very successful career. About 37, 38 years in, they became ready for retirement. Now, we had talked to them several years before, and they had clearly said, I'm not ready to go. Love my job, want to keep doing what I'm doing. They were able to get their financial picture lined up so they could see how financially they could be okay through retirement. I'll get more on that in just a few minutes. But emotionally, they weren't ready to retire. Well, one night at 3 o'clock in the morning, she woke up, turned to her husband, shook him and said, it's time. Now, the last time he heard that was probably when she was having a baby years before. But she said, it's time. And he said, time for what? And she says, it's time to retire. And he said, of course, as many spouses would say, can we wait till the morning? There's nothing we can do about this at 3 o'clock in the morning. And she said, but it is time. He said, okay, when we get up in the morning, we'll talk about the paperwork and everything needs to happen for you to retire. But that experience with her in tears in the middle of the night was such a reality moment that it was indeed time for her to leave that working career and move into this new phase called retirement, and worked very successfully for her emotionally to get to those points. So a lot has to happen to get you to that 3 o'clock in the morning, it's time experience. It doesn't happen in one session or two sessions. It happens over a series of small decisions over time to get you comfortable with that very moment, both emotionally and financially. So great story of that federal employee. Now, I want to give us now a checkbox, some things to think about as we answer two questions at the same time. Are you emotionally ready, and are you financially ready? So, and the answer can be yes to one and no to the other, no to one, yes to the other. So let's examine in the 4 boxes that I'm going to give you on the screen in just a moment, how you need to address your specific situation. First, obviously, if you are emotionally ready and financially ready, check the box, retirement is upon you. Now, second, let's delve into this one in which you are not financially ready, but you are emotionally ready. You want to go, you're ready to leave, but you're not sure about the financial situation. This is the most common, by the way, that we face at Retirement Benefits Institute. People come to us ready to retire emotionally, but just not sure if they can financially retire or not. That's the unknown because there's so many variables to be considered, so many questions have to be answered in such great detail, including what your federal benefits will be, what will your pension be, your health insurance, your FEGLI, what will Social Security do for you or not do for you? Do you have enough money saved so that you can begin a slow distribution of that money and not go broke too quickly? As we talk about this now, we're talking about financially being ready to retire for 20, 30 years. So it takes a lot of prep work on the beginning of retirement to make sure it works successfully over the long haul. So let's delve into some things you can do if you are emotionally ready, but you're not sure if you're financially ready to retire. Number one, you can consider delaying retirement. Now, I know that's not the thing you wanted to hear today for those that are ready to go, but you may have to do so. As long as you can do that, having a plan in place that I'm going to delay retirement till this date when X, Y, and Z will take place, then I will be financially ready. Then that's okay. Number two, you can consider moving more aggressively with your retirement income strategy. How will you draw down your assets? Could you draw down a little bit more and make it work successfully? Can your assets sustain that for 20 or 30 years? Those are considerations that you can put on the table. Next, consider working in retirement. We've seen many federal employees retire from that full-time job. Typically, they've moved up in their career, so they are doing a lot of management of other people, which many of them have told me that can be very tiring at times. And maybe you've had a specialty. You joined the government with your special skill set, and now you find yourself managing a lot of people with that skill set. And you go back to your first love, just contract somewhere doing that very thing that you love to do without having to manage people. You can do that very part-time, potentially with your pension and other income. Your part-time work could keep you at your proper financial standard of living, keep you comfortable. So that's a good consideration. Next, consider alternative income sources. We've had people downsize their house. I want to retire. The only thing between me and retirement is that $2,000 a month house payment. So the house is gone, I want to go. If you're emotionally ready, people are often willing to do drastic things to get financially ready, and downsizing the house is one. Warning, sometimes we have people say, I want to pay my house off with my TSP so that I can retire. Be careful, if you owe $150,000 on a mortgage, you can't draw $150,000 from your TSP because you'll owe taxes on the traditional TSP. So sometimes you may have to draw $250,000 to pay that debt off, depending on your tax situation, which could be devastating on that year's tax return, costing you far more in that one particular year. See a tax professional. Make sure you get good advice before you decide to take a lump sum out to pay off your mortgage.